Everyone, we're going to get the meeting started. Can you hear me okay? Yes? All right. This is considered a workshop because we don't have enough attendees in person. Through that happened because of various mix-ups, but anyway, so here we are. You would have been sent the agenda for the workshop. So the first order of business is to call to order. The next is, even though we can do no voting at this meeting, so we cannot vote on the minutes, but if you had any corrections or additions to the minutes from last month, March, if you could please, send them to Kathleen?
Yes.
It would be good if you could just email her any corrections or additions to the March 8th minutes. So tonight we're pleased to have a special guest, Marty Hylton, Professor Hylton. He's with the University of Florida Historic Preservation Department, and he is going to do a presentation about cemetery preservation work they've been involved with, I believe, at the Archer BME Church Cemetery. So Professor Hylton, if you would take over.
Thank you, Kathleen. Can everyone see the screen?
Yes.
Thank you. So Roberta Lopez, who heads the nonprofit that was created to oversee the ongoing stewardship of the cemetery, she reached about 2 years ago, and I authored an application to the Florida Division of Historical Resources Small Matching Grant Program. And we were ranked relatively high and received the funding. And so since really in earnest September of this year, we've been documenting and assessing the cemetery and preparing a conservation management plan. So this is a presentation I gave in late February to their group. We're actually working on the conservation plan now, and I'll share a draft copy with you, Kathleen, and this group. It should be ready actually within the next 10 days is our goal. But our primary objective here was to document and assess the cemetery conditions and to prepare a prioritized plan for the ongoing preservation of the property. We're preparing what's called a historic context statement to put in perspective larger issues. This cemetery is formerly enslaved people after the Civil War. We found out we're actually given the land, the property. They built a church and a cemetery. The church no longer exists, but the cemetery is still there. We're preparing that context statement and a statement of significance. The site is not on the National Register of Historic Places, but that's one consideration that's being discussed with the nonprofit group responsible. We're doing our best. It's in the period of time we have to better understand the people and the families that are also buried in the cemetery. We've done documentation. I'll talk about the digital imaging techniques that we use. And I myself did a grave marker by grave marker assessment of each. And then recommendations specifically on some of the damaged stones, but the recommendations are also just ongoing quarterly, annual kind of cyclical maintenance. Everything adheres to the Secretary of Interior standards for the treatment of historic properties. And we're fortunate to have some good advisors, including the National Park Service through their National Center for Preservation Technology and Training, NCPTT. They actually offer cemetery restoration workshops. I've actually participated in them. We've had them do them for our students. So they're have agreed graciously to kind of review our recommendations for the cemetery, as well as an architectural conservator friend of mine from New York who's helping look at the specific recommendations for things like cleaning of marble, for example. This is a partnership between the Bethlehem Methodist Episcopal Cemetery Restoration Organization, my program at the University of Florida, the Florida Public Archaeology Network, and Nigel Rudolph have been very involved, working very closely, even more so than us throughout this whole process. And then again, we're getting support through the Florida Division of Historical Resources. We have a program, an endowment at the Historic Preservation Program that an alumni of UF, when he passed away, his wife created this endowment. He really loved Florida history, so we were able to use some of the funding generated by that endowment for the cash match. So we were able to provide that directly, UF. In terms of historical research, we're obviously looking at a lot of secondary resources, but with the help of Karen Kirkman in particular at the Hill Homestead, we really have gotten into the Alachua County ancient records and some other primary sources, maps, images, kind of multifaceted approach to gather information about the cemetery. Gone down a lot of rabbit holes. This is just one example we sort of discovered with Karen's help, and then a little bit on our own about the Hickson family and their relationship to the Haynes family, which were formerly enslaved people. And Arthur Haynes is Roberta Lopez's ancestor. In terms of existing conditions, we use a process called terrestrial laser scanning, sometimes referred to as LIDAR. There are different types of LIDAR. Ours is what's called a phase shift scanner. So we literally, the short answer for what laser scanning does is that it collects millions, hundreds of millions, billions of XYZ coordinates of a site. And it's all the physical aspects. So it's not only, it captures everything it sees, from the grave markers to the trees to the landscape. It's highly accurate, 2 to 4 millimeters. We're talking about 1/4 of an inch, less kind of thing, 1/8 of an inch. And it's really rapid. So we've been doing this for about a decade now. So what you're looking at is the digital model. It's in 3 dimensions, but here it's presented 2-dimensionally. You're looking at it from above. We did all of the scanning from below. We did do some drone imaging, but what you're seeing here is laser scanning. What you're seeing, that kind of white, is the tree canopy. The leaves move, and so they appear a little bit, it's called noise, they appear a little bit white, but this is dropping down. Again, this is not a pixelated photograph, but this is the actual 3-dimensional model. So we can go into this model and look at individual grave markers, for example, and take measurements and look at conditions. So we not only did the terrestrial laser scanning, but we also used a process called photogrammetry to look at each individual grave marker. There's about 90 that have been documented. And that's what you're seeing here. Again, these aren't photographs, but these are 3-dimensional models that is a really great, highly accurate documentation of the site, but also to address things like cracks or cleaning. You've got a range of materials, but they're primarily a couple of different types of marbles and a granite. And then there are quite a few grave markers that are cast, kind of concrete, many of them have sort of Portland cement. So they're either cast solid or they have a rendering, kind of a rough textured rendering, and it's a different construction on the inside. We've divided the site, it's shown in black and white here, into these kind of sectors. And so it's just a way of organizing. So each grave marker then has a unique identification number. And the report will have, depending on the size of the grave marker, the report as it's being laid out now, we have about a page or two per grave marker that includes all the basic information about each one, as well as the recommendations for immediate intervention if it's calling for, if it's a broken tablet, for example, versus, again, ongoing cyclical maintenance. So that's just dropping in on that kind of sector C and looking at the different, it's shown in red, it's a little hard to see on the screen, but each of the different grave markers. The circles that you see are where our laser scanner actually set. That's what those circles are indicating. So we have a really highly accurate map of the cemetery, including the trees themselves, which were part of the ongoing management, obviously. One of the things we have been looking at, historic maps, but also the portion of the cemetery is actually not owned by the nonprofit. So they're going to be looking at, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but this area here is actually off of the property boundary, which needs to be depicted here. So there's sort of an issue with maybe ownership that might need to be addressed. The other thing we did, the Florida Public Archaeology Network undertook ground penetrating radar to help us identify unmarked graves, because we believe there are a number. That data actually is going to be transferred to us on Wednesday, so I'll report back on that. But I was pretty excited. I'd seen this done before, but I'd never taken ground penetrating radar data and mapped it with the laser scanning. So we did 3 fairly large areas, or I should say the Florida Public Archaeology Network did. Our students came out from UF and trained, or at least got some exposure to the process. So that was exciting. Again, I mentioned the concrete, the marble. There's a couple of metal grave markers. This one in particular had fallen down that also needs to be repaired, but this is just sort of a reiteration of what I was saying earlier about materials. And some of the conservation issues that we're addressing are displaced grave markers, broken and cracked, of course. Delaminated, meaning the surface material is failing, mostly due to weathering, or it could be damaged from limbs from storms. We do have some loss of inscription detail. You'll see from that this is for lack of a better word, it's not as formal a process, obviously, as carving into marble, and so these cast stones often do have some loss of inscriptions. And then we have a lot of biological growth just because it's Florida and wet. So our approach and treatments, really just having a thorough record of this moment in time of the cemetery. Again, like I said, adhering to the Secretary of Interior standards, and our treatment really is, our preferred treatment is preservation, just really trying to maintain things as they are. There will be certain gravestones that we are suggesting a restoration or a more heavy-handed intervention. But we are trying to choose the least invasive treatment. Any kind of replacement materials, we'll try to do that in kind. It may be that with some of the cast pieces, we need to take a sample. We have a lab now that we can analyze it to actually see what the mix was to create that original cast grave marker. We just want to make sure, again, adhering to our standards, that whatever we do is reversible. We're being really cautious about the types of glues that we're using, or in putting back some of these markers, or any kind of cementitious material. We don't want to cause any further damage. So again, reset, displace, and unstable markers, including repairs of the base, is a big conservation issue. This is one example. Repair broken or cracked markers. We have a couple of these where they've just cracked completely into, probably along a a natural fissure in the stone is what I'm guessing, for what it appeared to me to be, at least in this case. And this is just saying like some of the basic information that we're gathering on each one. Again, some of the descriptions are hard to read. That's why the dates might be missing, but overall dimensions, what the materials are, the condition and recommendation. And we're finishing the historic context statement now, or at least a draft to be reviewed by Roberto Lopez's group and others. We're kind of wrapping up, at least at this phase, information we have on the burials, but that's going to be ongoing as a next phase. Again, I'm finishing my draft recommendations for the conservation. We have not yet analyzed the ground penetrating radar, but we'll be doing that over the next couple of weeks. They've also expressed an interest in putting a fence around the cemetery as well as a memorial. So we're providing some concepts, sort of schematic designs on where the memorial might go, what it might look like. We've been looking at some other examples and the type of fence that we think would be appropriate. We want to be really careful to whatever we do in terms of interventions on the site. We don't want to impact the integrity negatively because, again, we're discussing the idea of the cemetery going on the National Register. We've pushed back the April 9th date. Obviously, we're not ready there to the next week. And we've had to move our meeting. Unfortunately, Ms. Lopez's older sister who helped create the organization just passed away. And so her celebration of life is on April 24th. So we're now going to meet on May 1st. And that's it. I think a next step for the National Register, we'll make that determination maybe when we meet on May 1st, would be to fill out what's called a PSIQ. So it's just asking for a determination of eligibility for the register. In full disclosure, I've done quite a few National Register nominations in my time, but I have never done a cemetery. So I've been speaking to a lot of colleagues because they have their own kind of distinct process for which to nominate them. So that's my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Does anybody have any questions for Professor Hylton? Would you raise your hand?
I can unmute people. They are, most are unmuted.
Adrienne, did you have a question?
I certainly did, yeah. I saw on your last slide something about historical research being undertaken on some of the people buried in the cemeteries. I was just interested in hearing more about what you were finding or what was involved with that.
Yeah, again, we really, Karen Kirkman has been amazing. She was so open, you know, she oversees the Hill Homestead and she's done a lot of her own research. So just how you use these, you know, ancient records was something I was aware of them, but I had never really worked with them before. So she's been great, really guiding us in that. And we've just gone down a lot of like the Amos Haynes was just something that was discovered in this process, which was really exciting. We don't have, we're just down a lot of rabbit holes is the way I keep describing it, following up on a lot of leads. It turned out that they were in Marion County originally, but then Amos came to, you know, to Alachua County and he was a sharecropper. So we've now made that connection with the Hickson family, but that still needs to be followed up as well. We're finding, you know, beginning with the kind of 1870 census, right, is when formerly enslaved people were being tracked too. So that's been very helpful too, the census records. But I'll share that all of our write-ups, at least on the people we were able to identify and find a little information about, will be included in the report. So,
Fascinating. Thank you.
Yeah.
I did notice in, I think it was Sunday's paper, that there was an article about the cemetery and it had a list of people buried there. So they were asking for people, if they had any knowledge of those people buried there, if they could let Roberta know. So it was think in the local section of Sunday's paper, it was a list, big long list of names.
Yeah. Clarify that it's you speaking. 'Cause
No,
it
this
says
is-
my name.
This is me. I'm not Kathleen, this is Karen. Kathleen's over there.
Well, honestly, within the confines of the grant, I think of the 90 known burials, we're probably talking about, I was just looking at it today, we're probably talking about 20, 24. We might have some basic information on everyone, but 20 that are a little bit more in depth. So there's still a lot of work to be done. But at least, you know, there's a process in place, and, you know, we'll continue to support the work any way we can. I think our big thing was really the documentation and coming up with conservation approaches that were, you know, economically feasible and low tech, but yet still, again, adhering to our standards and being appropriate. We were concerned about OT Davis. The group had approached them about doing some of the repair work, but they tend to do new grave markers, not repair work. And we just want to make sure that we absolutely think it should be local expertise that's being used. And they seem very open, the representative from OT Davis, about working with us to implement these more conservation level repairs. Again, I'm just concerned about any kind of repair not doing any future damage. So, and Roberta, she's come around, she and the group, I think she was really very much focused on it, making it look pristine. And I said, you know, one of the beautiful things, at least to me, about some of these markers is that they do show their age, right? They have this kind of patina to them. So I understand about wanting them clean and wanting everything looking presentable. But at the same time, I think it is a historic cemetery. And so we should find that kind of balance where we're making sure that, you know, the stone or the cast stone is in good repair and being monitored and being treated periodically, but again, not kind of over restoring. That was
Any other questions for Professor Hylton?
Hey, I can unmute people if needed.
People who can't see there.
I will share the report, and maybe in the future, we have a lot of cemeteries in Gainesville. And I'm particularly interested to see how this ground penetrating radar works out. The kind of irony is we did our first day of ground penetrating radar on Halloween, which I thought was somewhat appropriate to be looking for unmarked graves in a cemetery. But I think the students really got a lot out of it. So.
Awesome.
We have unmuted Nigel if he would like to speak.
Okay. Nigel, do you have anything to add?
No, I mean, it's been a pleasure working with Marty and UF group on this project. I'm kind of working at sort of an intermediary between them and Roberta, which I think is a fine role for me. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the report as well. And it's been a real pleasure working at this cemetery and getting to know the community. That's sort of my most important part of it is getting to know the individuals whose ancestors are buried in this cemetery. So I've really enjoyed that process. And yeah, no, other than that.
8, 5, 2. All right, well, thank you. 1, 3, 9. Anybody else?
Ask them to raise their hand.
Yeah, you could, if you do have a question or comment, if you could just raise your hand.
There's a feature on the bottom.
There's a thing on the bottom, but there's the Zoom screen, it's a raised hand. You could hit that little thing, and I guess it lets Kathleen know you want to say something. Now, I don't see any little raised hands, so with that, Professor Hylton, thank you very much for the presentation. It was wonderful. Always learn something from you.
Well, thank you for the invitation. And again, I'll follow up with the report. And, you know, if there's an opportunity, you know, in the future to come back and talk more in depth about the findings, and we can arrange that.
My mother, and
Thank you very much.
to cancel her landline.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, you too.
One other thing along the lines of historic cemeteries, we have a cemetery cleanup scheduled for this Saturday at Hinesville Cemetery. It's in Archer, but it's outside of the city limits, the best I can tell. I may be wrong about that, but it's a historic African American cemetery, and I believe Nigel, that we're scheduled to start about 9 o'clock in the morning.
That's correct. Yeah, we're starting at 9. It says on there is a Facebook invite that I'd be happy to spread around to everybody. It's on the Florida Public Archaeology Network's Facebook page. But it starts about 9 and it's going to end around about noon, but I'm assuming that 3 hours is more than enough time. So I'm expecting it to be done a little bit earlier than noon. But it would be great to have a good group of people out there. And this is just one of several cleanups that we're going to be planning in the future for these old cemeteries and or in and around the Archer area. Now that everybody's getting vaccinated and people are able to kind of talk amongst each other again.
Okay, remind me, is there a water source there, or do we need to bring jugs of water?
We need to bring water. There's no water there.
Okay, good to know. All right.
Well, she's not moving to Saturday, so
Kathleen's putting the agenda up. So we're on number 3. Refers to the direction from Commissioner Alford to place historical markers to commemorate the Native Americans.
right.
Kathleen sent to all of you a write-up by Dr. Chris Monaco about the Battle of Micanopy. And I don't know if you all got a chance to read it, but that could be a historical marker by itself. There it is. It's like 6 pages long, but it's first-hand account in some cases of the Battle of Micanopy. And I think part of the point of what he's saying is that it was a running battle. So it wasn't just on one spot. The battle kind of moved over a distance.
All right, thank you very much.
So I think the idea might be this, there could be one of these markers for this Battle of Micanopy.
He also is interested in the state historic marker and our help to condense.
Oh, so I think says he's interested in a state historical marker as well. So 6 pages is not going to fit on one marker, even if you use 2 sides. So he would need assistance in breaking it, narrowing it down to, what is it, 1,235 characters, including spaces per side, something like that.
You okay?
Is Melanie there?
She is, and she wants to speak. Let me see.
We're trying to unmute you, Melanie.
Can you hear me?
Can you unmute?
Okay, now you can hear me.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Chris Monaco, he's chairman or president of the Micanopy Sites and Battles. And I think,
Phone schedule.
I can't hear you. Is someone talking?
No.
Turned it off today, but I said,
I will mute.
I figured I'd leave it on until Saturday.
Okay, so now, am I the only one talking?
Yes.
Okay, so Chris, I think, will be writing a marker, and I think that the Micanopy Forts and Battles is going to be paying for it. But that's not a given. I'm just saying this is what I heard. And the Micanopy Historical Society may help pay. I'm not sure. This is down the road. We haven't discussed it to any great extent, but I think that he is working on that. I mean, I haven't talked to him specifically, but it's just something in the pipeline as far as I'm hearing in terms of the marker. They're battling Dollar General right now. That's the big issue. And then after that's solved, then they'll start talking about a marker. As far as I know, if anyone has anything different, then let me know.
Melanie, I'm going to see Jeffrey Forbes tomorrow at
Okay.
another meeting. And I'll ask Jeffrey if he knows anything about this too, because he's deeply involved, of course, with the historic preservation group in Micanopy and the church, and getting rid of Dollar General out of Micanopy, of course. So I'll ask Jeffrey if he knows if that marker is moving forward with another group.
Okay, but I mean, no one's even talking about it now. All the focus is on Dollar General. So if there was any discussion, that's not recent. But it still is an option. But the Dollar General, can you hear me? Yeah, the Dollar General battle is overtaking everything that was ever discussed before, because that's a fight for its life.
I want to ask Kathleen a question. Is what the county commission looking for is state historical markers, or just some sort of signage that would be placed around the county, something different than a state historical marker?
I think the historical commission can make a recommendation that can include different types of interpretive displays, whether it be state historic marker or a kiosk at Tuscaloosa. But I think we are asked to return to the county commission with a proposal, so to speak. And we cannot vote on anything this evening. And I do apologize. The scheduling of this meeting just became such a confusion to me. But I don't need to take time talking about it. But since on Friday we had said it would be a workshop, and that information remained over the weekend. This is only a workshop with no vote. But in May, if we have an in-person quorum and Nicole is ready with any recommendations, as she's done most of the research for our group, we can draft a report about interpretation of Florida Indian history, and then we can be ready to present it to the county commission.
It's possible, I think, that in some cases we could recommend a state historical marker, and in other, maybe a kiosk, because we have so much information to share, and that putting it on a state historical marker might be too limiting.
Oh, Nicole says she couldn't hear me.
Oh, okay. You have a mic?
Not really. Can you hear me better? Nicole indicated she couldn't hear me. Is that any better?
Much better.
Yes, you're a lot better now. It was hard to hear you up till now.
I turned the microphone around. So
Oh, that helps.
when I'm speaking versus Karen, but sorry, I was just saying that we, the Historical Commission, will prepare a report or a recommendation to take to the County Commission about how to provide interpretive information for the public. We can consider a state historic marker. We can consider a display at Tuscaloosa, or both. Or another option, last meeting, there was discussion of adding to the tour by cell phone. So we can outline a approach and then give a cost estimate for them to review. But because of the confusion with the scheduling of the meeting, we cannot take any vote tonight. And I do apologize. It was totally confusing to me, but anyway, good to see everyone virtually. And if we have a quorum next month, we can take action.
can you ask, I assume you've got the speaker, can you ask Nicole, maybe
Yeah.
make recommendations to me?
Nicole, do you have any update from your work, and will you be able to by next month send some written recommendations? Karen is asking.
I think you asked if I have any updates. Where I'm at right now is I'm pretty much, my commission is up in 18 days. So I'm gonna make sure that I'm still on the board before too much more work. Let's be honest. So what I plan to do in this next month is another reading, an update to a reading, so I can, as the commission continues, hopefully I can get that to you guys so that you can look over it and see if you have any additions. But I haven't done work on that marker because I was still waiting on figuring out what we're doing or who's paying for it and the characters and such. And I think we can talk better about this or more fully about this the next time I see you in person.
Okay. That's fine, thank you. Thank you. Okay. So the next item is the truth and reconciliation process. One update on that I have is that the Waldo, Hawthorne, Campbell, Rochelle subcommittee of the Community Remembrance Project held a community forum recently. And it was very well attended by members of those four communities. There were a total of 31 people on that Zoom meeting. So they're getting ready to start moving forward with perhaps the marker and essay contest. I don't have any other updates on the Community Remembrance Project. Do you, Kathleen? Did I?
Well, the group continues to meet, the steering committee group. Melanie has a question or a comment. Melanie?
Yes, I want to know, I wasn't able to attend it, and I want to know if they recorded it.
I don't think those are being recorded. I can confirm though.
Okay, okay.
I think it might have been.
Okay. There is a group that's working on a quilt as part of that process. And there's also a UF professor who's working on a play that will be presented at the Hippodrome. Did we already announce this? I think it will be scheduled in November is what was last mentioned. And it's based on the Newberry 6 history. So those are some things I remember.
I've got one other. One other update is that the marker for the Gainesville subcommittee, Equal Justice Initiative, felt that there was so much information. Gainesville will have two markers. So one marker is going to deal with the Reconstruction era, and then the other marker will deal with post-Reconstruction. So the one that's moving forward right now, of course, is the Reconstruction era marker. And then the other one will come at a later time. They won't be done at the same time. Okay, Kathleen, you're next.
Well, as I put in the staff report, there will be a public hearing on Tuesday, April 27th at 5 p.m. regarding the nomination of the Tuscaloosa Road as a county scenic road. Aaron Weber, a citizen who requested that nomination, is part of this meeting. I can allow him to talk. Aaron, do you have any comments?
Yeah,
it's super important that we get that designation. You know, I was thinking about this today and talking with Jeffrey Forbes and Homer Moore. So Tuscaloosa Road, I mean, the county has a pretty stringent list of criteria for a scenic road designation. It has to sort of be between or lead to a historic location. It has to have a public park along the route. It has to have interesting geological features, and Tuscaloosa Road has all that and more. We have Thrasher Park along Tuscaloosa Road, which borders Tuscaloosa Preserve, and we have the Micanopy Native American Heritage Preserve along Tuscaloosa Road. It's essentially the old road to Fort Micanopy, approximately, and not approximately in some locations. It's the same road, in fact. It's the road where, you know, June 9th, 1836, the U.S. Army troops stormed out of Fort Micanopy and met Osceola's group of Seminoles for the Battle of Micanopy. So that happened on the corner of essentially Tuscaloosa Road and Highway 441. That epicenter of the battle, where the 6-pounder cannon was located, is right there on the corner. So, I mean, I was reading through the Land Development Code ordinance and just thinking, man, I don't know why this has never been nominated before. And, you know, part of the urgency of it is the, well, there's two things really. One, you know, there's, I think, 5 or so plots on the corner of Tuscaloosa and 441 that are eligible for commercial development. And this designation actually limits commercial development within the 100-foot buffer zone. So those landowners can, you know, do what they want behind the 100-foot buffer zone, but it preserves the tree canopy. And the other thing is, sort of with the pandemic has sort of made people realize that, you know, they don't have to commute to work, and sort of a combination of the pandemic itself plus more available broadband has really made people want to locate to sort of a rural, or more, you call it, country setting. And so I've lived here for 11 years and seen one house get built on Tuscaloosa Road, and within the last 3 months, 2 houses are under construction. And one of those houses is located the septic tank right on Tuscaloosa Road, and disturbed the tree line. And so, you know, I don't want to discourage people from moving out. We welcome all new neighbors, but at the same time, you know, what I was thinking today was that shared beauty of the sort of scenic Tuscaloosa Road is something everyone enjoys, and it's not really for one landowner to destroy. So without the protection, you know, you can clear cut the trees and ruin the tree canopy up to Tuscaloosa Road, and so it's very important that you know, we get this designation just essentially to protect the scenic beauty of Tuscaloosa Road and the historic nature of Tuscaloosa Road, so that we don't have, you know, things like a Dollar General on the corner or something in between the Dollar General property and the Native American Heritage Preserve. That's also zoned as commercial property, and there was an application to put an HVAC warehouse there, and so that would, you know, ruin the scenic integrity of the road. So those are my two concerns, and I really hope anybody in this meeting can come on the 27th and support the cause.
Okay, thank you. Of course, anyone can speak as an individual, but we cannot take any formal action, and so there's no formal recommendation from the Historical Commission, Aaron. I'm sorry, but that's just part of the situation with this meeting. But the staff recommendation is to support and to approve the nomination of the road. There's a forthcoming report from County Public Works that they did some studies of the road, but the speed limit will remain 30 miles per hour in the proposed resolution. There's also an allowance for some trucks. We know that that road is the access for the Micanopy Fall Festival. And the proposed weight limit was based on the weight limit for the Millhopper Scenic Road, which is 25 tons. It's a lot of weight.
Wow, that is a lot of weight.
Yeah, it's a lot of weight, I think, but Millhopper is so designated.
Yeah, the speed limit, I think, is the second most important issue. There's actually a motion or a movement within the town of Micanopy to get the speed limits lowered on that road.
Well, this would be a good time to discuss that.
No, I agree. I agree.
Nicole added to the chat, what time is the April 27th public hearing? That is at the 5 o'clock meeting of the county commission. I don't know where it will be on the agenda. As you know, that can affect the actual schedule, but the meeting starts at 5 o'clock. It will be both in-person and virtual comments possible. Do any of our other guests have any wish to speak? Melanie, okay. You need to unmute Melanie if you want to.
So we're coming to a close, right?
Yes.
Okay, well, I wanted to mention that I have a sample letter that I wanted to send to the county commissioners. And I wanted to read it and let everybody edit it if they want. And then this letter will go out to the living county commissioners, of which I counted 23. And then I wanted to send a mail. I'm going to search and find their address and mail it to them, and then follow up with possibly an email or phone call if they don't feel capable of writing their own biography. But I don't know what kind of letterhead to put it on. Does it come from, do we have a letterhead for County Historical Commission?
Yes, we can have a letterhead.
Okay, so I'll write the letter.
Agenda, since this was not on the agenda.
Right.
By email. If you email it, I can share it with the others. And then if they have comments, I can put those comments into a document and send it back to you.
Okay.
So
I'll just send it. I'll send an email. I'll send the email to Kathleen.
Correct.
Okay.
I did not get a list of addresses yet, but we can work to try to find them.
Well, I can look the addresses up.
Okay. Well,
unless you have time to do it, because I'm having to live for 2 people now that my sister's in the nursing home, and it's not settled at all. Maybe in a couple months, because I need to move her. So that's another drama. Well, so if you have time to look up the addresses, I prefer you to do it.
I can't say when I can complete that task, but I'll help you as possible, okay?
Okay. Well, I don't think there's any rush on this.
No, I don't think so either. Okay. I think the last thing we have on the agenda simply was for, is that facing me?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. The last thing we had was if anybody's term is expiring, like Nicole, please reapply. And Nicole, on that, your application to be reappointed, you'll certainly want to talk about the things you have been doing and will be doing for us if you're reappointed.
I don't know if you could hear Karen. I had the microphone the wrong way, but she was asking those members who have expiring terms to reapply. I have received Nicole's application. Thank you. Karen had noted, Nicole, that you could include the mention of what you've been working on. I think you did that on your updated application. And I had not heard from Charles as to whether he plans to reapply. Would you like to speak, Charles? I'm trying to get you to unmute.
You can do it yourself in the bottom, on the left side.
There you
Yes, Kathleen, I plan to reapply.
Okay, wonderful. There's an online application if you can look at that. I thought I sent it to you, but I'll double check that I did, and you complete that, and that's good news. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service, everyone.
So. the mic towards you and me.
Oh, pardon, the mic is towards me, and I see that Nicole did not hear what time the public hearing is on the 27th. It starts at 5 p.m. I don't know where it is on the agenda. It is a county commission meeting held here at the county administration building, and there will be ability to comment virtually via the phone, call, login. And I'm going to turn the microphone around for Karen to end the meeting.
Okay. So we don't have any other business before us on the agenda, so the meeting will be adjourned. Hopefully we'll see you all next month. Do you have the date?
May 10th, I believe.
May 10th is our next meeting. So y'all take care, be safe, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Hi.